Hi, everybody, and welcome back to the Next Level Podcast with Dr. Leslie. I am your host. I'm so excited to share with you all. My own podcast has evolved already, and I'm thrilled because I'm able to bring forward topics that are really near and dear to my heart. Those specifically are mental health, mental illness. That is really all-encompassing. It's about manifestation. It's about our mindset. It's about the power of our mind being able to create what we want to in life, and how mental illness can hold us back from reaching our human potential. And that's really what I'm here on this planet to do, is to help people, not only at the individual level, but at the system, at the global level, to facilitate our human evolution in a very positive direction, easily and efficiently, effectively, as best we can. And really, from my own experiences and my own challenges and seeing it in my family and my own children, how mental illness can be such a holdback in us being able to tap into and experience our highest potential as humans, I really want to address it. And we see that manifested in so many different ways in our society here today. There's so many other topics outside of just mental health that we'll be exploring as I continue to bring out new episodes and experts in the field of human evolution. Everything from the discrepancies between men and women now, as women are becoming more empowered, all the way to what's happening with our children post-pandemic in the age of social media and influencers basically raising our children. So many amazing episodes and so much great information to come. It's really going to be a platform focused on exploring the problems so we can find solutions to help us get to where we need to be as a human race in a very positive way. So stay tuned. This is going to get really good, guys. Without further ado, I have my first guest who's going to be basically sharing with me about mental illness and how we can better tackle these problems. We're going to explore some of them first. We have George Carmona. He is the Komodo Dragon. That is his new nickname. We've just... I've coined him.
Call me Kimono. Kimono. Not even Komodo Dragon, kimono.
Oh, kimono. Like a
kimono.
Like an actual kimono. So not a Komodo Dragon, just a kimono.
I think that fits better.
He is very chill, and I think that actually makes sense because he is I'm going to call you like a guru of, not just a guru, maybe you're a whisperer of emotional disturbance.
Oh, I like that. I like that. Guru would be putting me on a pedestal in which not even a guru calls himself a guru.
That's true. You know? That's appointed. It's appointed, but you are a whisperer of... it'll come to me. But I feel like I need to put my hands together and bow when I say Komono.
Mr.
Komono.
Mr. Komono Dragon.
Yes. Nailed it. We have the name. Every time I walk into the studio and see you, Mr. Komono.
Mr. Komono Dragon.
Mr. Komono Dragon.
Yes.
Oh my God. And then I feel like we need to do like a chest bump after that.
Yeah. Without a doubt. Yeah. We just go completely out of left field there.
From calm to chest bump.
Yes. Boom. Yeah. I like it.
Okay. Deal. It's done. You all heard it. That's what's going to be happening behind the scenes.
Is that a handshake just made without ever actually doing it? Now we're going to always do it.
We're always going to do it every single time. In fact, along this whole line of coming up with names, I've just been branded here Mom in the studio because everyone is like 12 that works here. So apparently I'm Mom. I literally was like, yo, B, did you just call me Mom?
Yeah, no, you got to check out Dr. Leslie's Instagram because I'm almost sure you're going to post that. That's hilarious.
I just did a video.
She was so happy to call you Mom too. So I mean,
oh, it wasn't derogatory. I thought it was
out of a place of love, just straight love. Yeah, because Vanessa, John's fiance who owns the studio, she's like Team Mom. We call her Team Mom. So. It's not it's like a guru. It's a very high appointed position.
So I need to be bowed to then also, maybe that's
possibly.
I'm kidding. All right. Well, so Mom, Mr. Carmona Dragon, and Austin, we still have to figure out what his name is. Anyways, we're digressing. Let's roll into the show as we're being silly and talking about mental illness. But this is what we need to do. We need to bring more joy and more laughter and more positivity into our lives despite these heavy conversations and the things that we deal with, because really creating a beautiful future starts with having a good thought process. And
Without a doubt. I think it all starts with the way that you're inputting data these days. So I think we can start with what I used to see, because I was a high school teacher who taught students with emotional disturbance. And I really got to see at the high school level how much data was being inputted into our kids' brains. And I would almost go as far to say that it's probably more now than ever. It's almost a data overload. Now, depending on what sticks or not is what, determines your fate, as far as, are you using all those inputs through social media to your advantage, or are you using them to a disadvantage? Because I think when you're a kid and you're just trying to find, what do I resonate with, you can oftentimes go on a really misleading path. And you can't really find the good inputs that social media or life provides. And you're just stuck in this pattern of, well, they're doing things this way because I'm seeing it. Let's, for example, say the luxurious lifestyle. Like your Instagram has to look a certain way these days in order for you to retain any merit. And if you aren't posting with the fancy car or good looking women, or you're on vacation somewhere, then like you're not doing it the right way. And a lot of these times, like, these kids will look at those things, and that's just, it could be the wrong input for that time. Kids need to really start looking on social media for ways to digress their day and kind of process it, because in order for you to live a positive life or not be bogged down by mental illness, you need to be able to reflect on everything that's happened in a day. And social media doesn't allow that. And there's some people that focus on that, and I'm sure we'll touch on them eventually. There are a lot of like positive role models, you being one of them, that is trying to preach this message. However, there just seems to be like a huge discrepancy between the amount of people that are fraud types leading these students and kids into a bad direction compared to like us.
Right, that have a positive mission and want to make a positive influence. It is really difficult. I know with my own children, I've seen them struggle so much, particularly during the pandemic, particularly after too. We're seeing this increasing pullback from family as their teachers, as their role models, much, much sooner. And it's being shifted to the people that they're seeing on social media and YouTube. Oh my God, these YouTube influencers are just like, there's a character, I'm not even going to say the name because I don't want to promote it. I'm just like, you are not watching this guy. Like the crap that comes out of his mouth, like a teenager shouldn't even be listening to this guy. So it's just, it's sad in the sense that all of the, just having access to social media is allowing children to be influenced by people that don't know what the hell they're talking about.
Right.
And it's actually affecting the way that they're connecting with their family. Like my children have a lot of support systems, and I have a counselor on board with them. And I struggled so much with this, even regulating them, but they get all this stuff from their friends and whatever. As much as you try to regulate, the counselors and the teachers are seeing that children are pulling away from wanting to even connect like with family. Like, even though the pandemic, there was so much Zoom and that sort of connection, they don't know what it means to foster meaningful interpersonal relationships because it's so one-sided what they're getting. Their brains are getting so polluted with that.
And like, I'm not going to act like we're not the main culprits too. And I'm not a parent myself, but I know how much I use social media now, and I do it for a living, right? I'm a social media manager for a lot of accounts at the studio. So I'm on 24/7. And when it comes to social media, it's so quick. You know, you're checking every 10 minutes for 30, 45 seconds and you're swiping off. But then you don't realize how much those like 30-minute spans add up. And then especially when kids get home these days, all they want to do is disconnect, right? So I think there is a good amount of time that a kid could spend on social media without it ruining the family dynamic. But I think what you see is a lot of families that are like, all right, well, if he's on his phone, I'm just going to be on my phone. And there's a time and place for that because it's important to be able to relate with your kids. Because I feel a lot of parents, they may just not even be looking, right? They may not take the initiative to see what is my kid actually watching. And if you're not doing that, then you're for sure not connecting with your kid. And then if that's all they do, then like, what are you doing as a parent? You know, like there's like a little bit of a disconnect that I saw a lot with my students, even if they were coming from single parent households, like where the mom's working a lot, they have to fall back and rely on the things that are easy to them. And social media is. So yeah, no, I wonder if, if kids and parents are both able to use social media healthily, what does that look like? Like what does a structured night after school look like in order to, achieve that balance? Like, have you found anything? Because I wonder now, and I ask these questions because I figure I'll be a father in the future. So it's good to, I don't know.
Yeah.
Pick your brain, especially.
Yeah, that's actually a great question. I know back years ago when I was rearing my children in their many, younger years, research was suggesting 1 hour of screen time maximum after the age of 2, right? You don't want them to be starting any earlier. And that evolved and that changed. Well, now that everything is changing over to the computers and the screens and all that screen time, that evolved. The thing with research is that our brains are changing, our demands are changing, our societal expectations are changing. And so I don't really believe there is one solid answer. It really depends on what you're grooming your children to be.
Okay.
So
I like that.
I'm very, even though I'm a scientist at heart and I really like to have data, the thing with us is that we're in such an evolutionary shift. Like in medicine, 50% of what you know is basically obsolete in like 10, 15 years, just because we're learning so much.
Right.
And that's why we need to have, people like me who have doctors in nursing practice to read the literature, assimilate it, and put it to the bedside, because it takes about 15 to 17 years for that to be translated. So what we're doing for research now might be obsolete in a couple of years, but we won't find out for another 15 or 20. So there might be
what you're tailoring it to what you are trying to
cultivate in my yes. So word. Like for me, what I would ideally, now I'm divorced, so my kids, like the household it's a different, very unique, different structure. So I don't have 100% control on what my children are exposed to and what their sort of lifestyle is being cultivated. Now, some people would love to have their children not be on any electronics. That's going to alienate them in their traditional school system, because everyone's going to be talking about whatever. They're going to feel outside because they're not part of their cool kid, circles. They don't have they don't know the latest YouTuber or whatever. So it really depends as a parent, I think, what you're wanting to, dare I say, impose, or how you're wanting to raise your children.
Without it. I mean, like, who else is going to do it?
You know what I mean? Right.
They're going to get some input, and it's going to be the person that's keeping a roof over their head. And that
Of course.
as half of them.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm sure there is some research out there that suggests, okay, minimizing to maybe it's an hour of screen time after. Some people don't like to have their children on any electronics during the week, and then they'll give them a few hours on the weekend. So really, for me, I would want children to ensure that they have other fundamentals in place first before we even, like, the social media and all of that stuff it's not even about restricting it. It's about, are my children being taught emotional intelligence? Do they know how to meditate? Do they know how to self-regulate? Mm-hmm. Do they know how to control their emotions if they're having, like, those things I would want to have time and structure for my children. And then whatever, as long as they have those things, I'd be okay with them having that time, because I need that time.
That's
too.
Very good that you highlighted that point, because like whatever we are teaching our kids, or we tell people to teach our kids, is exactly what you need to do when you're a grown up and you're wondering why your life is the exact same, or why you are having to rely on the same people you were relying on and, decades previous.
Yeah.
It's the same exact thing. And I don't want this message to ever get lost in translation. If you're teaching it to your kids, you need to be doing it yourself. And you'll feel guilty if you're not. Like a slight.
And they'll hold you accountable. As a parent, oh yeah, the kids will hold you accountable. Why aren't you doing it? Oh God, you're right.
That's going to be tough. I'm not looking forward to that, because I am.
Oh, they call you out.
I'm the worst.
They call you out. They call you out. The good thing for me, because my whole mission and purpose here on this planet is to lead by example and to figure it out on my own, so then I can help people. I don't ever get caught in that situation generally, although sometimes my kids will catch me on they'll catch me on, like, if I kind of contradict myself in what I'm telling them, not necessarily by my action. My son is very, very smart. He's also very manipulative. So he's a good kid.
Those are typically the ones you got to watch out for.
Totally. Oh, my daughter is like insane, like in a good way. She's brilliant and beautiful and so just like sneaky. She's she could rule the world.
Oh, for sure. And so it's interesting that you say that, because a lot of the students that I taught in my 4 years were master manipulators. Mm-hmm. And I think it's a couple of things. One, when you're growing up, and I'm sure you've discussed this, the brain size and the way it's growing, and until you reached full maturity, certain things behind your reaction time and your willingness to analyze a situation, think about your thinking a little bit. Mm-hmm. You don't have that as much, especially if you are like, you have that trait of manipulating, because then you're like always on the hunt for that. Like, I got to stay one step ahead. Mm-hmm. Be careful. I mean, I dealt with a lot. Yeah.
Yeah. And so to go into George's sort of introduction that took us a little bit to get to, he has, you have a degree in special education, and you were
Correct.
a teacher for 4 years. And so he dealt with children that had emotional disturbance. So this is something that he knows very, very intimately. So with the children that had emotional disturbances, tell me a little bit about what you sort of observed with them in terms of what, in your opinion, created a lot of the emotional disturbance. So how much of it was hereditary, how much like nature versus nurture, what were some of the challenges that they had, and if you know of what their trajectory or their expectation for being functioning, contributing members of society as adults would
Absolutely. Be. So I this was my favorite area. So there's 13 different disabilities categories as of 4 years ago. We could have added a couple more, but emotional disturbance students were the normal ones, right? They had no visual disabilities. Many of them are in normal classes for a majority of the day, but they'll always come back to a classroom like mine for a specialized instruction on emotional disturbance, right? Or just controlling who you are. And One of the things that you can see in a lot of these kids, man, I was just having like flashbacks to the classroom. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. It's been a sec. Yeah. You start talking about it and I start thinking about the kids, but a lot of them already came from really rough upbringings. So the odds were never in their favor to begin with. A lot of students labeled with emotional disturbance are on what people call a preschool to prison pipeline. So a majority, I think the numbers were hovering around like 65% of all people that were labeled as having emotional disturbance eventually spent some time in prison. And this was like a 25-year study or something like that.
Wow.
Yeah, it was really long. Yeah.
Wow.
But it goes to show you that a couple of things. There is no data that proves that keeping all of these students in the same location each and every year is actually benefiting them, right? The goal is always to be inclusive. However, a lot of the systems in place in schools keep those kids in your classroom all day because those are the problem kids. Those are the kids that go bananas when a teacher is looking at them the wrong type of way. And we're already dealing with high class size numbers as it is. Mm-hmm. So for a teacher to then get, what people would consider an a-hole tossed in their class, they're just like, no, let's keep them in your room. And so you never really get that inclusion that these kids so desperately need, right? Those positive inputs. What does a student who turns their homework in on time look like? Is he stressed out? Because every morning that I come in and I don't have my stuff ready, I have this overwhelming anxiety because not only have I let the teacher down, but I've let myself down. And you see that all the time. Not in my classroom. I didn't believe in homework. I honestly, out of all the 3 years, I maybe graded 25 papers.
Oh, wow.
I'm like, I was solely effort based because I know that if you are showing up for yourself every day, that's an A+. That was like my grade. I didn't tell them that.
Yeah. Wow.
But yeah, so you have a lot of kids that they never get included. They're on this preschool to prison pipeline. They keep being told that there's something wrong with them. And then the older that they get, right, they start to realize, oh, I'm not in the normal classes. Like when my friends, and my classroom was dope, right? Like I had a turtle tank, LED lights, like bean bags. Like it was the place to be. And everyone would come by and be like, oh, bro, you're in his class. What does he teach? And they'd be like, yeah, he's like my math. They had to like cover for themselves because there's a good deal of embarrassment. And with that being the case, right, and all these kids being like really counted out, it was my mission at that time to make them feel included, get involved in the school as much as possible, and really build a self-image that they were proud of. And trust me, I didn't figure it out till like the tail end. And I feel like if I would still be teaching today, like I'd have a really good groove going. But it takes a long time as a teacher to figure it out because there's nothing that was taught to me other than classroom management, basic classroom management, that focused on students' emotions and the way to regulate this new world of, mental health being such a big
And there's so much more. Like there are so many children that would have otherwise not be labeled emotionally with emotional disturbances or some sort of high needs now than ever post-pandemic that I'm seeing from my children. It's insane. Like the adaptiveness or the adaptation. Thank you. The adaptation that the schools have to put together and create is insane right now. And so what I wanted to ask you is, from your experiences, what do you feel would be a solution for that? Since you're saying basically that these children with emotional disturbances are on a pipeline to prison, as they get older, it's worse because they're seeing that they're different, they're being treated differently. And that only makes them feel more like shit. Like, okay, I'm special in not a good way, like, okay, so what does that mean for me? And then it creates all this, when you don't have good self-esteem, when you're not normal, then you're going to just, okay, well then I'm labeled something, so I'm just going to go down this route. So, kind of a part of my question as is a solution that you would see, there are some school systems that are taking children from other demographics, other, lower income, maybe more special.
Like, definitely.
They're
transporting them
transporting to other zones, districts to sort of equalize, give them a different experience. Do you feel like that's a helpful thing? Because I know there's a lot of parents that don't like that. It's very controversial. And if that's whatever your thoughts are on that, I also want to get what maybe your alternate solutions could be.
For sure. Yeah. The first solution, at least here in Clark County, the county that I taught in, is it's just too big. And this, I would imagine, plays a huge part for a lot of counties around the country, is that there is, I would say, almost 500,000 students in Las Vegas, right? And to be able to get things passed as far as new discipline regulations, or some similar to what you're saying, maybe creating more initiatives of getting kids in the inner city spread out, or at least presenting the option. And that would be my answer to that, is if the option is available to get your kid from the middle of the city towards the outside of the city for a better education, you should have that option. I don't think there's any issue with that. One of my big solutions, when I can fund my own school, there's going to be a huge amount of time spent on personal development. And I understand when I was teaching.
Yes, when you're ready, I'm with you on that, and we'll find investment money, because this is such a hot topic for me, is emotional intelligence. Children need this at the very beginning.
And so I can only imagine, I was dealing with high schoolers. I was like, if I had an elementary school bunch, what can I really instill? And it would stick a lot better. Obviously, when you're growing up, those first 7 years are just everything is being downloaded. And then from that point on, you're using what was downloaded early on to make decisions somewhat. But the big thing for me in personal development is I was only teaching 9 kids at a school of 3,500. I was teaching 9 kids, and I would be helping as other kids would, come throughout the hallways if I saw that they were struggling, stuff like that. I was a coach, so then I had a somewhat extended range there, but I can't tell you how sick it made me that every administrator that would come to some of the lessons I would teach would tell me, oh man, I'm even more relaxed. This is my boss. So I knew I got a good, evaluation. But at that point in time, I was so young, Leslie, I was afraid to really push the initiative forward and be like, I need to do this for everybody. The way that I'm going about teaching, that even just structuring this 35-minute lesson, we would do a lot of guided meditations. Progressive muscle relaxation was probably my favorite for them, because that's just in case you don't know what that is, it's squeezing different parts of your body, putting focus on it, and then releasing. And that, if you're coming off of recess or a fight, if you had a scuffle in the class, excellent time to use that strategy. But what I was getting back to is, if I had the money to fund a school that can just focus on this, maybe it's not a school that'll teach you all the academic side that you need, but it's something to be said if you can have your kids be learning emotional intelligence at some point in time in the week at a place that's specializing and giving you multiple interventions, because that's all it is. I mean, you see the books at Barnes and Noble, 100 strategies on how to lose my anxiety. And all those strategies, all that we would be doing at that place is doing it, practicing it in a calm environment. People are afraid to practice. They think it's, oh, I know that. That's simple. I don't need to practice that. You're never going to do it.
Right. Well, from my belief and my experience is our education, like what children actually learn, can be taught in a much shorter period of time. That so much of the school day is being utilized on managing the children and in between classes, transitions, and all that sort of thing. I know someone who homeschools their children, and they literally can get all of their school day done in a matter of a couple of hours, depending on the time, the grade level that they're in. It would be so wonderful if we could incorporate, this emotional intelligence into the school system. It doesn't even have to be a separate, like I know you're saying is a separate school. Like school is done at 2:30 in the afternoon, which doesn't make sense because the powers that be have made our work days 9 to 5. So there's hours after school that we could, if we wanted to. We don't want our children to be in school all day long, but it always made me question, okay, the government dictates like our 9 to 5, our holiday schedules, all the things, as well as the school systems, and there's like this discrepancy. There's so much time that can be utilized to actually teach the children to be human beings, not just academically driven.
Yeah.
I mean, we could see that in a rotation of teachers, like, because it's a burnout. Like, why can't we have a morning session, an afternoon session, and we have academics day, emotional intelligence, yoga, spirituality, blah, blah, blah in the afternoon, and have like a 9 to 5 children and adult day. I'm not into having the children locked into their schools like that long. I understand. But at the same time, where are they going to learn it? Because if the parents are at school or the parents are at work, who's going to be taking care of the kids? It's a nanny or maybe a mom who's rearing the younger children. Great. But then how are we supporting that? You know what I mean?
It's the greatest difference between an American education and a lot of foreign countries is because it's a mass utilization of time. And not saying that we're making excuses for our kids, because like education's a luxury, and I think sometimes if we're looking at school like how adults look at work, then we lose the fact that it's actually like amazing. And we always look back and realize that that's the only time in our lives where we were mingling with hundreds of people daily because we had to, right? And so we can kind of shift that perspective, right? If I did have the funds to start my own school, you have to look at it more from a community base if you want to start seeing the real, your environment around you changing at a mass scale. There used to be a lot more community events at school. Now schools, everyone's afraid they're going to get shot, Right. So where's that new central hub? Because if we don't establish a place of safety and, the ability to find resources, a lot of things that have been cut as far as after school type programs are a lot of the English second language, English as a second language type classes for a whole bunch of foreigners coming in. And Las Vegas being a transient city, they don't have that anymore. And it's this whole effect that stems from the way that we feel about schools.
So
go ahead.
No, I didn't mean to interrupt. So everything is kind of being pushed then into the families. Is that what I'm hearing? The programs are being cut. I mean,
everything.
The funding's not there, then it's not there, and we have to take that on ourselves.
Without a doubt. And the parents should also be getting direct feedback from the teacher. That was one of the biggest things that I realized early on as a teacher. I'm like, a lot of teachers have issues because they're not in great communication with the parents. Now, mind you, I had 9 kids, so my communication was phenomenal. Like everything that they needed to know, they knew. We were ahead of schedule. We knew what the plan was. We knew if they had good, bad days, yada, yada, yada. But it's being lost right now. And that's where, as a parent, you really, as your kid is going throughout school, it cannot be as simple as, how was your day? You know, it's that detailed breakdown and rundown of, well, how did this day make you feel? Right? What happened to make you feel that way? Cool, you like that? Well, let's just keep that on repeat. Oh, that didn't happen? Okay, so let's do this right now. So whenever you're feeling that way, we can take 10 minutes in the quiet. We could do our box breathing, and then we know we feel better. So if that ever happens again, we could do that. That's where parents are, I feel, missing the mark. One, because they don't know the strategies themselves. And two, because the kids, it's tough to get a kid to buy in sitting alone with his thoughts. It really is.
Tell me about it. I try to get my own kids to do that. It's very difficult, especially one that has some emotional dysregulation where they're very hot under their collar and they're like, and they just want to explode. Seeing that taking time alone with your thoughts is not a punishment. And a lot of parents get that wrong. And I'm so glad that you said that, because this is, again, part of that bridging the gap is we need the parents to be educated to be able to teach the children. Should we not be able to, since there's funding cuts with the schools and we can't have this perfectly aligned, parents go to work and children go in school and learn all the wonderful things that they're supposed to learn. That's not happening. It's, again, more responsibility on parents. They need to learn. Like, think about this when you become a parent, okay? I'll give you a little taste into the future, okay?
Give it to me.
Now the great thing is you don't necessarily have a 9 to 5, or maybe you do. You go to work 9 to 5. Your kid technically is off school at 2. Your baby mama, wife, whatever, will either be at home to pick them up and take care of them, or they'll have to do after school programs, which God knows what those are, coloring, recess, whatever. If they're in a good school, they have other things. You get home, it's 5:15, 5:30. The kids have to be in bed between 8 and 9:30, depending on their age. You have a very short window of time where you get to parent like a champ. You're exhausted from your day. You've got your own BS that you're handling. You need to exercise. You need to eat. You need to decompress. And then it's nighttime routine and time to
really
relax.
Yeah.
So doesn't offer much opportunity to be with the kids. I mean, a few hours is enough, but there's a lot you have to pack in there to teach your
Without a
children.
doubt.
Right. So for me with my kids, after my work days, and I usually try to make my work days shorter, find other avenues to generate money. And I'm educated, so I'm in a little bit of a different situation, but taking my kids and exercising with them, taking to the gym.
Together.
Together, or doing activities together where we're outside, where we can be talking, where it's net time, no extra time. We're exercising, we're talking emotional intelligence, we're reviewing our day, we're learning skills all at the same time. And it's exhausting, but we get the job done. But how does that sit with you? That structure, as a parent, you having to take on learning how to be those things for yourself, and then having the time to teach your children. The gap is with getting the parents educated, having the time, the resources to be better parents that can be available for their kids.
And I mean, I would just say that if the parents really put their best foot forward on showing their kids everything, one, right, your kid's own travel agent everywhere. So you have to put your best foot forward and show them life. And if you aren't doing that, that's the biggest letdown you can ever have for your, if your kid sees you not pushing forward and trying, I try to explain this to my mom sometimes, because although I really connect with my father, my mom waking up at 4 a.m., having everything ready for us in the morning, putting in a 12 hours day's worth of work, coming home, she would cook dinner. She would, we'd have dinner as a family, and then it would just be on repeat. And then you don't realize it till I'm at that stage now where you're just how the fuck was that even possible?
Magic.
But
Your mom was magic.
I know it's possible.
Yeah.
And that's the thing where it's like, I may never be that father that is like gives their kid everything, or, I obviously people are going to miss the mark sometimes, but I'm going to be certain of one thing. I'm never going to miss the mark for myself. Mm-hmm. And if I miss the mark for myself, that'll be the only time as a father that I'm like, I hope he doesn't keep that, mm-hmm. Like I hope he doesn't resonate with those losses or those failures.
Yeah, and that's actually a beautiful transition, because we had talked a little bit before when I wanted you to come on my podcast about our own evolution, your own evolution and creation and manifestation, and how we be better in the world and be successful. So this is a really great opportunity to kind of shift into your experiences, where you're at in your own journey, and what you're experiencing and what you're sort of dabbling in, and these realizations you've had about you evolving and getting to the next level in your success, what that means authentically for you.
Without a doubt. Like I come from an athletic background. So it's always been, you put in the work, there's results, and there's glory, right? From the game, right? And you get to experience like what you could consider a lifetime in the span of a season of sports, right? Because you're starting off the season, you're just building everything up, you're getting the foundation of your life set. Then the season starts to happen, lose a couple of times, win a couple of times, highs, lows. But at the end of the day, and then it's over. And that's the exact same way that life goes. So for me, I am probably at the stage right now where I've started off like 6-0. Like I really don't feel like I've lost at all. And I'm proud to say that, because there's been a lot of people in my life that have given me great advice, and I followed it. And I stand by all the decisions I made. One of the biggest decisions that I made that really revolutionized who I am today was 8th grade basketball. I was a chubby white kid. Austin could attest to it. I was just out of shape. I was very athletic, but I had never like played for a team before. I was getting my ass kicked every day. I was pretty depressed. I didn't realize it at the time, but I was just like, I would go to school, the sun would be out, I would leave, it'd be nighttime, 6 p.m. after basketball practice, and we used to run. Like we were the most in shape team ever. So much running. It was my evolution from being a boy to a man when I literally, I told her, I was like, I'm going to quit. I was making this decision on my own. Then she called my dad. We have this whole conversation in front of the school. I'm bawling my eyes out. But she kept it so 100 with me that day, my basketball teacher. She said, if you do this right now and you come back tomorrow, I'm going to look at you different. And I was like, woof. Right? It was like the first realization that one, that I really meant something to her. And, I had a good, spot in her heart. But if I was willing to quit on myself, she was going to quit on me. So after that point, it was just like a never ending cycle of, when it's summer football, I'm going to practice at 5 a.m. at a workout center. And then I'm also going to our 4-hour midday practices. And that it led to the life that I had after that, right? So then I played football at UNLV. I was a preferred walk-on, so I had to bust my butt to get a spot. I tore my ACL. I decided at that point, I'm going to enjoy college. Quit the football team, my own decision. And then I found a program in which I can get my degree in 3 years, which is crazy. Like it's always been like, I want to find ways to better like my parents and stuff and everything. They've been pretty successful. So graduating 3 years hadn't been done. So I was like, sweet, this is my chance. And so I had to take 120 credits in 6 months with student teaching. This would give me my teaching license. This would give me my bachelor's. So I did it. It was the most intense academic, and I'm not that academic, so it sucked. Time of my life. I mean, we had no holidays off, yada, yada, yada. I have never felt more accomplished in my life than on my first day of teaching, where it was like, wow, I put in all the work. It's time. And at that point in time, I didn't realize how great my position was. You don't ever get talked to by administration when you're working with emotional disturbance kids. They're like, they got it tough enough as it is. I don't need to be the boss that's like giving it to them on the other end. So all that has kind of led to me reconnecting with Travis. When I was a teacher, I also was starting my own podcast. It was during COVID. I was like, I'm going to do it. This is what I've wanted to do my whole life, was speak in front of people or speak on camera. I started a podcast up with Austin. It was a movie podcast. We did it up until our friend passed away. We hit our year anniversary though. So I think he was waiting for the year anniversary before he kicked the bucket.
Oh God, that's so dark.
I know. He would have loved it.
Congratulations.
He would have loved it. He was like, I would have made it to 2, asshole. But anyways, after getting that whole podcast thing up and running, I met Travis, or reconnected with him. We went to high school together. And then after I met Travis, I started internshipping here. And I had a $36,000 a year cushy little teaching job, to fall back on. So I was like, I can internship for free. I'll work hard for you, no worry, right? Because just like how kids have nothing to do after 2:30, so do the teachers. So if teachers ever complain about the time that they don't have, they have too much time. I will.
Oh, I'm just outed you.
To the teachers. I had way too much time on my hands. I needed something to do. I literally internshipped here, worked my ass off per usual, and I think that's the common thing, right? In order to amount to as many wins as I have had or I'm going to have in the future, there's, I said 6-0, but it's really like every second of the day I'm choosing to be a winner. I'm here at Sticky Paws, usually one of the first people here and usually one of the last people to leave. I love that feeling though of not leaving any stone unturned. And I think when I watched your Instagram post, or I may have posted something about like the law of resonance, right? Mm-hmm. It was the first time I ever heard about it, but it makes perfect sense. The vibrational energy that I put out in the world is what I get in return. It's what I get out of Austin, who has a family, for him to come over here and bust his ass for us every day, and motivates John to do what he's doing for us. I know it's got Travis's back. It makes our host at the studio feel comfortable because they understand that there's people behind them pushing hard. And then after figuring out about the law of resonance, it just kind of helps solidify what I'm doing is correct. I can stop manifesting as much. I used to do that a lot, like manifestation to the max, but it's kind of pointless. It's like dreaming without action.
Yes. So it's very interesting because manifestation, I feel, is seen differently by men and women. I've talked with John Orlando on the show too about manifestation, and he was saying manifestation is great, but you need to take action to be able to put something behind it. Women, particularly, I shouldn't even say men and women, but I'm seeing this as a very big difference just in the podcast and the people that I've worked with. Men have this tendency to be able to be very tactile, very action driven. Women, we are very emotional. We're very, we're about the experience and about the feeling and that sort of thing. And so we tend to get caught up in the imaging and the anticipation and the planning of it, and we don't take the action. Really, manifestation is neither of those alone. It's not just I'm going to bear down and do it And it's not, I'm just going to think my way there. Manifestation truly in its definition, at least in how I teach it, it has to be in its whole, its comprehensive understanding. And that's the image with the intent, the mental construct and the clarity of what you want, matched with the emotional part to it, the feeling, I'm doing it. This is what I'm convicted. There's that energetic, I claim this.
I like that. I like you added emotion to that. Okay,
yeah.
keep going.
And then you have to, nothing happens without the action. And so I was talking with a friend of mine about this. When people think about manifesting, they like, well, I want it in my head and I think about it every night and blah, 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 blah. But it doesn't happen. Well, again, they may not have the action part, but even taking the action isn't enough if you don't have the feeling behind it. The feeling is where a lot of people miss, because that is where the resonance is. That is, without you knowing it, George, how you're actually manifesting. So it's not even the thinking. It's not even the action. It is when you are it, when you are emitting the energy, the feeling, the emotion of it, you are attracting that on all levels. And people may not believe the law of attraction or that energy. We are energy beings. It is what it is. Science has validated it. We have a gazillion years of, that's an exaggeration. You know, there's lots and lots of research, and not just people who are spiritualists, but we're mainstream gurus, mainstream research that is validating this concept. And just our own experiences, when you get into the feeling of something and you match that with a clear image and you take action from that space, it's powerful. Whatever you want to call it, wherever you think that it comes from, whether you're an atheist or a spiritualist or a universal believer, it doesn't matter. The concept is powerful and it works. So fill in the blank how you believe that actually happens, but it's that, I feel it's that triad that really is what makes us, create. What I would love for people to see, and this is where I take my clients to the next level, is taking that ability to manifest and manifest from a place of authenticity. So taking the spirituality, taking your personal development, taking everything and really coming into who are you here to be. So you can manifest whatever you want. If you want to be, a billionaire, you can do that, but is that right for you? Is that honoring what you are really meant to? Because the thing is, there's lots of billionaires, lots of people have been very successful. Their lives have been cut short because it wasn't really authentic for them. If they were living authentically, they would have been incredibly happy, blissful, and their bodies wouldn't have been run down. They would have honored themselves, and they would be able to live their fullest potential. So, manifestation and all of that is wonderful. But the warning with us being aware of our power and potential is, how are we wielding that power? We could create something that's totally successful by American standards, but completely inauthentic. And what service is that doing us, for ourselves? So I love being able to sort of talk about this manifestation ability, but then flipping it and saying, how do we do that so that we can all live authentically us? And really, to bring it back to this conversation, even about children and parenting and that whole thing, we all need to find out what is an authentic life for each and every one of us.
Absolutely.
It may not be even participating in the structured academic school. It might be homeschool. It might be whatever it is. There's so many different ways we can live our life. And the solutions really to these problems are as limitless as,
I'm glad you mentioned the emotional side of it. I'm a big drug guy. Like, I'm not ashamed to say I've taken a lot of drugs. So I have what I would consider, right, and what many would consider, those insane levels of like dopamine rushes.
Which really, are beautiful. We love dopamine rushes.
Yes, right. But The thing that has been revolutionary for me in creating like a true feeling of happiness inside, Wim Hof breathing. I did it with my students a lot. I was never skeptical. I think after the first video, I was so hooked. And I'm proud to say my longest one I've ever done was 45 minutes. It was like a YouTube video.
Wow.
Holy shit. Melt into the floor, insane dopamine rush, insane amounts of joy for life and the beings around me. It was phenomenal. I feel that same exact feeling when I put in a full day's worth of work. So I can kind of see now, right? Like, because I wouldn't manifest anything less for me. And obviously there can be things in the day that hinder my emotional capabilities. Like, for example, there's been some things here happen at the studio that were my fault that, I'm a person that I'm my own worst critic. So whenever something bad happens to me, I get into that negative mindset, and it's really tough to shift into that high dopamine happiness, especially with how fast life's moving. But if I was to have made a concerted effort to slow my life down and really get myself back on track there, I probably could have manifested more that day. But yeah, no, I like that you added that. That's a new piece for me.
Yeah. And I think that you do that naturally. You had said something earlier on when you were saying you got advice and you listened to that. As simple as that might have sounded to listeners, that jumped off for me, because to be able to reach out to someone, share your concern, get advice, listen to it and realize that, hey, this is potentially very good advice, and then take it. That is very advanced. I mean, because people would not even do that, where they would think, you have to be very humble. You have to be very interested in really succeeding to do any of that. Just reach out for help and even put yourself in a position where you might feel inferior. People have raging egos. They really don't like feeling like they need help or that they don't have the answers. Mm-hmm. Like you said, people want luxury and they want cars and they want all this. Like, that's all for show. It takes a lot of humility and a lot of ability to say, I'm learning. I don't know. I want to do things the right way. So I'm going to ask. And so you do all of that naturally, it sounds like. So you're like, your average of continually winning is something that you either had naturally and or you learned early. And I feel too that because you have had such ease with being able to do that, there's a certain amount of you being or resonating at a success vibration naturally is what allowed you to have so much success. Because really, again, for you to be able to do all of those things, you had to literally embody being confident and okay with being a learner and receiving advice.
And so I came from a coaching background. Like, my father was a head coach for football for my entire upbringing. My mom was a vice president at Citibank, so high HR. So she was dealing with a lot of like human issues. Like, I got to see more human interaction things, like whether it was disputes, happiness, the way people act. What do coaches do after they win a big trophy game? Well, they go to the titty bar. How does dad react after, or how does mom react after dad comes back from the titty bar? Okay, I'm 6 years old. Like, I'm seeing all these dynamics. Oh, this person told my dad to go fuck himself, and then he kicked him off the team. Okay, so it's a lot of analyzing and seeing so many reps of human interaction that has allowed me to feel like pretty confident in most situations and scenarios. I will say the one thing that I feel could be a solution to this wave of this generation that we have coming up, maybe it's military or maybe it's 2 years of teaching, but you got to pick one of the two when you come out of high school. military teaches you that discipline. I never went to the military, but I know that coming out of the military, most people are genuinely more joyful, or maybe not joyful in the sense of, they could be really like, they could have seen some shit. So like that, and that's not joyful.
Right.
But joyful in the sense that they were able to complete a pretty monumental task of basic training and protecting an entire country. Teaching gives you the same feeling, and you being able to control a room and have the confidence in yourself to preach a message and to see people grow. Even throw coaching in there. If we're going to say you have to pick one of those coming out of high school to give you ample amounts of reps to deal with multiple different backgrounds and upbringings of people, that could help, yield people being more confident in themselves.
That's a great suggestion, I think. I mean, it would touch on not just like you're saying, the human interaction or just those really human skills to be able to deal with people. But to deepen that, it's going to help give the tools that people need to connect with themselves, because to be able to interact effectively with someone else, you really need to know thyself, or at least know how to manage your own emotion to be able to handle the situation properly. Even if it's just band-aiding it and just controlling your feeling to be able to interact is enough. You don't necessarily have to go on a deep dive into unraveling your inner shit, but at least, I think that's a really great solution.
I mean, it's something that it's stuck with me because teaching puts you in that spot, man. Like, it was one of the things you had mentioned. I think before we leave, I need to ask you the whole power dynamic, because I've not read, but I've watched YouTube videos on the 48 Laws of Power. I find it so interesting. Like, I really, really want to learn not only like the ways in which I can garner more out of people, but the ways that people could be like trying to, overpower me per se. Are you familiar with the 48 Laws of Power?
No, but I'm going to find out.
For sure. I mean, I watched on, it's a book, Robert Greene, possibly. And yeah, it pretty much just goes through these 48 laws of how, people are able to get power over other people. Or I would use this for my students in the sense that they already were pretty manipulative, but can they learn how to manipulate themselves? I really think his laws that he writes can be reframed into taking control over your own life. Although it wasn't intended for it to be read that way, I found it was, relatively similar in being able to regulate your own emotions.
So what was one that you found the most applicable to your own regulation?
I knew you were going to put me on the spot like this.
Ha ha!
Can I
Threw it back to you.
I'm going to do a quick Goog on a law of power, and I'll go into it.
Okay, he's going to go into
48 laws of power. The first couple of them.
Reminds me, this is reminding me a little bit of the book, what is it called? How to Win Friends and Influence.
Okay, here's
something like that.
Yeah. Okay, so here's the first one. Never outshine the master. That's rule 1. So that literally explains I wasn't trying to outshine the master that was giving me information, and I was willing to input their information and give it a shot to see if it was worthy of being used. A lot of times, like especially for my students, they would think that because they can act like an asshole, they can get out of any situation. Well, as they're trying to outshine thy master, they end up back in my classroom somehow. You know what I mean? Because so it works two ways. They were trying to outshine the master to get what they wanted. So that's where it kind of like is a chess game with these kids. Are they doing that just to come back with me? Do I need to tell the teacher, hey, he's going to play this game with you. He's going to try to outpower you. But you got to be like, know what your retort is. Things like that. There's so many.
Wow, that's a
47 more to be exact.
That's really interesting, actually. how you can see the other side or turn it in on yourself. Wow, that's really good. I'm going to have to take a look at those ones.
Was it Robert Greene?
Yeah, were you right?
Yes. Wow. George is on the money.
Wow,
Let's
he is
go,
on the money.
baby.
Well, this is awesome.
Yes,
We've
it
covered
was.
so much today.
Definitely.
We did talk about maybe connecting a little bit on the male-female stuff that's happening in the world. Austin, do we have a little bit of time? Where are we at? We have 5 minutes? Okay, we can maybe touch on this. We talked a little bit about this, the women empowerment and this movement towards women wanting to have more for themselves. And this has caused a lot of challenges. No, I don't even want to call it challenges. It's disruptive. These empowered women are disruptive innovations.
Okay.
Let's call this disruptive innovations.
I like that. That's good.
Just like technology can be disruptive innovations. We're disruptive innovations pushing our way through to a new evolutionary sort of trajectory for humans. But it's caused a lot of like pushback, and there's a lot of, men that don't know how to deal. There's like the alpha guys and the beta guys. They don't know what to do with us. And it's, we've talked a little bit here and there. There's other people with podcasts that have their very rigid perspectives, and I don't participate in the whole
high school beef
stuff about it, because that's not productive. That's not making our way through.
It's not.
But I am all about the solutions. Like, just because we want to have more for ourselves as women, it doesn't mean that we're closed-minded to how we go about doing that and how we interact with the men that we want in our lives. And we do need each other. Men and women, we do need each other and want each other. It's part of our evolution. It's, we're not taking away from that. So you're married. Engaged.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Oh, trust me, you're going to like the dynamic here.
Enlighten me. So you're very progressive. You seem very like, you're connected with yourself. You're a manifester. You are a helper. You're a teacher. I'm very interested to hear your perspectives and sort of your dynamic, as much as you're willing to share about your relationship.
For sure. Yeah. So
you're also super young compared to me, so I want to get your generation's perspective.
So I'm following after my parents. I had a high school sweetheart. We met my freshman year of high school. And we had the typical high school relationship. I was unfaithful numerous times. We would be on and off. In college, we really solidified it. Like, she went to UNLV, I went to UNLV. We lived in the dorms together our last year of school. So we got a taste of like, is this really going to work out? You know what I mean? And it was a nice setup. Like, we had our own dorm to ourselves, a little balcony. It was amazing. So then I realized, I think like she's the one. And I think it was during COVID, like COVID happened. And that summer I proposed to her and we got engaged. Now, we were not at all prepared to do this. I think it took her by shock, and it definitely didn't progress past like, okay, what are the wedding plans? How are we going to do this? Right. It was very much so like, I'm just glad I'm committed to you. Right. And with the last 2 years and the way they've played out, and we're about to go on year 3, there's never been a pressure or like a hurry, because there was a lot of difficult conversations had about who we both are as people and what we want. And it's like, wow, I almost like, when I see these people get married so fast, and knowing that we've been together for 10 years, where we've been, like engaged, we've seen each other as teenagers, whatever. And these people they meet each other in a year, they're getting married, but like legitimately married, like on paper, let's do this. Government needs to know it. Blows my mind, because I know without a doubt, you need to see almost like a decade's worth of evolution in a human before you truly know Are they able to grow? Do they want more for themselves? And those were the things that at first, when we were engaged, we probably both weren't the best version of ourselves. Now that we've been engaged for 3 years and, we're, like she's a girl who likes girls type of situation. So like that whole dichotomy of, these mega alpha guys, right? And it's like, dude, you got to understand the world's changing and not every woman wants to be married. And I think it's a race for a lot of these guys who are preaching like this alpha masculinity to try to find like a person that they can call their own per se. And I want a wife so I can provide for her and show them that, I'm able to do this. But it's like, you really don't want that. I want, like, at least for me, I mean, if there's kids at home, there's a different dichotomy there. But, my girl's got to be getting after hers. And I would say in the last 3 years, like, she is not only found who she is as a person, but she's putting the pieces down every single day. She's going to the gym. She is jacked. I mean, Austin was commenting on our biceps the other day. Low-key weird. But we won't talk about it. He was like, dude, is she doing power slap? I'm like, not yet. She might. But yeah, like after, going through that engagement and now going through the process that we're in now, it's like, I don't ever see us. I mean, like, we may have a party one day. Yeah. You're like, hey, here was the ceremony. But it's not like this big push of commitment.
I think that's great. I mean, that's so much actually aligned with how I feel too, which is great confirmation, being that I'm a little bit older and I'm sort of one of the women sort of on the forefront of feeling like I'm stepping up and I'm doing my thing. Mm-hmm. What I hear from you, and I'm sort of paraphrasing or extracting the kind of main pieces, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it really sounds like there's a lot of insecurity with these macho alpha men that feel like they need to have a woman to provide for. It's like they need a woman to define them and to provide for. Mm-hmm. And just knowing what I know about human psychology and confidence and self-esteem, without that definition, who are they? And the thing with people who are sort of in that mindset, they don't have that capacity or a desire to dig deeper and say, yeah, who am I without a woman, without someone to care for? That's scary, because that means that you have to go inward and go, I'm enough without having someone to provide for and all of the things. And that means being vulnerable and emotional and connecting with a part of you that a lot of men traditionally are not comfortable or used to doing.
Yeah.
And so again, you are... Not that I grace you or label you, none of that means anything, but you are evolved. Like, as a man, you get it. You're so comfortable clearly in who you are. You're connected with yourself. You appreciate your woman. You encourage her. And you're not threatened by her success. In fact, you're encouraging of it. God, you have your
I want
crap.
Her, Cameron, you can sponsor me, baby girl. I'll fucking mop the floors. Listen, I'll flip the rolls. But it is just because I'm so proud of who you've become. That's the thing, right? Because in order to get to that spot, there was a lot of hardship. A lot of hard work put into it.
Right. And because that does not threaten you, speaks so much to you being an example of an evolved male sort of role model for many of the men that are, struggling or don't know how to navigate that. I really appreciate you sharing that perspective and being who you are and being such support to your woman, or whatever you call it, your lady, because we really need to have support. And women, we're very capable. We're very, very capable. So thank you so much for...
Absolutely. And I love you, Mom. That goes out for you too, you hardworking lady.
Awesome. All right. That is our episode for today. George has a podcast we didn't even get to, Gridiron Junkies. You can find it at
Gridiron
Junkies everywhere on all the platforms. So he is a football fanatic. So that's what that show's about.
Yep.
Thank you so much for all of your
Thank
wisdom.
you.
I appreciate
Absolutely.
you.
This was fun.
Yeah, awesome. All right, guys, until next time.